Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Burch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Burch. And today's episode, you get just me, but it's the special annual birthday episode of yours truly. When I started the podcast in 2020, I thought it would be fun to release a bonus episode on my birthday every year. Well, guess what? A Tuesday, which is our normal release day, is my birthday this year. So what fun to be able to share a special day with you. I'm really thankful that you listen, if I haven't told you enough. You know you really matter, and it's people like you listening right now that make this podcast platform possible. Of course, we have our awesome sponsors, Kaleidoscope Adventures and Kinnison Choral Company, and everyone over at the Patreon page, which if you're thinking, I'd love to get Emmy a birthday present, go join us on Patreon, because then you give me a present and you get something out of it. All those different tiers offer different things for the folks in Patreon. You get a monthly bonus episode just for you, which you can totally stream into your normal podcast platforms and listen just like always. You don't have to open the Patreon app. You also get bonus content, and there's different tiers, like if you want me to pop into a rehearsal one semester, or if you want to request an episode, there's all sorts of different things. So you get something out of your membership into Patreon. But then also, you're a part of all of this. Every guest that comes on the show gets a little thank you card and a thank you gift from me. I think it's important that we value each other's time and expertise and energy. And so everyone over on Patreon, thank you. Thank you for believing in this podcast. And you are a big reason that all this is possible. So enough announcements. I know we always start with those, but it's really important to thank the people that make this possible. Why? Because you're the person you are today thanks to every experience and everything that you've encountered. And that's what makes our world so amazing, is that we get to look into a room of musicians, young musicians, more experienced musicians, veteran musicians, and we bring all of these life experiences together and we make music. We create experiences out of that itself. And it's every unique person in that room that brings something to the table. So I want to talk a second about a speech I gave about a couple weeks ago. So my choir in Savannah, Georgia, Rise Chorales, RISE stands for Revolutionizing and Inspiring Singing Excellence, because I figured there was something we could do differently. We don't have to do it the exact same way all the time. At that point in my career, I had worked at a middle school, at a K-8 performing arts school. I had traveled the country as a teacher trainer for a curriculum, and I had worked with a children's choir. And I thought, there's got to be a new way of doing this. Singing brings us together, but there's so much more that I want the singers in my choirs to experience. And it got me thinking, how can I revolutionize and inspire people to strive for excellence? Just happens to be through singing. And so I crafted Rise Chorales as an LLC. So all of the members were getting a product. They were paying for the product of choir. And this all happened in 2016. I knew along the way, I took classes at Harvard and learned how to do all the business stuff and like those introductory to business readiness classes that they offer at Harvard Business Online. Very helpful. But I figured once I got this LLC off the ground, because it's easier, quicker, cheaper to start an LLC than a nonprofit, I always knew I wanted to start a nonprofit branch, but I didn't know what I wanted it to look like. I didn't know if I wanted it to just provide scholarships, or if I wanted to do programming, or if I wanted to eventually switch the choir into a 501c3. So I gave it time to marinate. So RISE itself was founded in 2016, and this past year, with a fantastic board of directors, we started RISE Outreach. Now, there's a lot of thoughts on the word outreach, but let me explain why we chose that word. It's really self-explanatory. When you see RISE Outreach, okay, it's going to be something outreaching into the community. And we've spent time really allocating what that looks like. There's a lot of areas in our town that don't have music in their schools. There's a lot of community centers and other places that don't have musical opportunities for their people. And if you think back to what started Rise, it was because music gave me opportunities. And I wanted to create that for the people of Savannah. And that's where Rise Outreach, the 501c3, came from. Like I said, we started it last fall, officially became a 501c3, went through that process, which, like I said, is way harder than starting an LLC, but totally worth it. And we started reaching out to donors. And the question we kept getting asked is, well, what are you doing? Who are you? So we wanted to have a big, huge kickoff, meet the newest nonprofit in town, Rise Outreach. And we found this beautiful space in town. They gave us their space for free. It's a kind of a food truck yard. It's called Starland Yard. Y'all, it is so cool. If you ever come to Savannah, you have to go to Starland Yard. There's a spot for food trucks to pull up. There's a pizza place that's inside the yard. There's all sorts of cool things to do and play, and it's all gated in. And then there's just this big stage area with turf, and it's covered in case it rains. And they said, well, we're not really busy on Mondays. And I'm like, great, Mondays is our rehearsal day, so that won't interrupt families. Why don't we have a social? So we brought in all of our families and friends. We invited our outreach communities, and we were able to introduce Savannah to their newest nonprofit, Rise Outreach. And how we did it, we brought in all of our singers of Rise chorales, and we had interspersed a song by the singers, which, y'all, most of them had audience participation, and that was so much fun. Oh my goodness, you should have seen the whole yard singing Okana Kamime. Hilarious. But we brought in all these different singers, and then we brought in speakers. So I opened with like a mini version of very, very oversimplified little TED Talk style thing. What makes me me, and where did Rise come from out of my life experiences? And then we brought up the principal from our first outreach program. We brought up the director, the activities director of our new senior citizen outreach program. And then we brought up Rise Chorale's director of operations to explain, like, kind of make the ask of what we're looking for. We need funding. We need the support of the community, the word to be spread, that kind of thing. So that was kind of the format of the evening. And as we were doing all of this, people came up afterwards and they're like, you've got to record your speech. You've got to get it out there. And so you guys know how much I love solo episodes. Not very much. So this is a solo episode because a lot of people asked for it. And I think it's kind of fun to share the story. Now, when I was thinking about what to talk about, I wanted to, of course, explain Rise and Rise Outreach and where it came from and where I hope it will go. You know, create the world in which you want to live, be the change you want to see in the world, all those things. But I also wanted to give some words of wisdom to the young singers in my group, because I know that it's intimidating your first, quote, concert of the year, or it's intimidating the first few weeks of school and knowing where do you sit when you go to lunch and where do you sit when you go in that classroom. So I wanted the talk that I gave, the speech I gave, to not just tell the story of Rise and Rise Outreach, but to leave the audience, especially my singers, with something tangible. So I titled this thing a lot, and I actually wrote it out. I'm going to read it for you here in a second. But the joke was kind of calling it a triangle in a square world. And I say that because when someone asks me what I do, I find that question really hard to ask. Do you guys ever have that issue? Like someone asking, and you're like, yeah, I'm a choir teacher. You're thinking, but I am so much more. I am an event planner. I am a fundraising mastermind. I am a corraler of human beings. I am an entertainer. I mean, do you ever think about, you're a counselor. You are there for those people. There's just so many things we do beyond what we do in our choirs. And so when you say, I'm a choir teacher, I'm a music teacher, sometimes I don't feel like it covers everything. Cuffy, our director of operations, who has known me so long, y'all. She has seen me through all the growing pains of life. I think we met when I was 19 years old. So, dear friend, dear mentor. And she came up and she said, I really have never heard you call yourself a triangle before. And I really want to understand more about what it is to be a triangle in a square world. So here's the thought. I've told you about this whole we do more than just choir. And I think that sometimes, especially with imposter syndrome and the comparison of, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? Am I where I'm supposed to be? The ruler, all those things, we can sometimes get bogged down in the mud. And so a really good friend of mine, Morgan Ludig, said, you're just a triangle. That's why you feel all bogged down in the mud, because you're not supposed to do it like everybody else does. And that's the thing. You don't have to be a triangle. You can be a square, a rectangle, an octagon, a circle, a triangle, a geometry. You can be whatever shape you want to be. The fact is that you're living in a world that has expectations, and it's whatever helps you release those expectations and just live into the space that you are meant to live in. And you know what? The space you're in right now is where you're meant to be. Well, however easy or hard that is, that's just life. And if you don't like it, make a change. Rub off one of those corners and turn yourself into a triangle, or soften the edge and become a circle. Do whatever you have to do to get comfortable in your skin and in your space. And so this idea of lessons from a triangle in a square world is something I've really been toying with, especially since I graduated my doctorate. What does life look like now? What does my job look like? When someone asks me what I do, what do I say? Do I say, oh, I'm a podcaster? I mean, I'm super proud of y'all. Like this whole platform, I'm really, really excited that we get to have these conversations and we get to bring people on the show and we're learning together and growing together. I'm so excited, but that's not all I do. Do I say I'm a college professor? Well, then what do I say? Because heavens, y'all, I teach like music ed classes, but then I design all these non-music ed classes. So how do you explain that? Can't just say I'm a music professor. Like, come on, that doesn't even cut it. But it's that type of question. Whatever your shape is, whatever you say when someone says, what do you do for a living? I'm a teacher. Great. But we know there's so much more to that. And so it's that idea that I'm going to bounce around the world as a triangle, and I don't care if I don't fit in the square pegs or the square holes or whatever that saying is. I want to find a way to be proud of the triangle that I am. And so that's where this speech is coming from those conversations and those parts of like wrestling with myself with why am I here on this planet and what am I here to do and what will I wake up every day proud of? What will I wake up excited to do? And that's going to be different for all of us. That's what makes the world amazing. My granny, she's like my best friend. We talk every single day. And she says, everyone has, I want to feel important written across their chest. And everyone on the planet wants to be the best they can be, or at least that's what we should think of. And so she always says to treat people like they want to feel important. And I think that that's a big part of this puzzle. I know I'm going off on a small tangent, but I want you to know that whatever you're doing is really important and it really matters. And this is all where the idea of the lessons of a triangle in a square world came from. No, I'm not saying that I'm different than everybody. No, we're all different than everybody. We're all unique and special and exactly where we're supposed to be with the people that are in front of us at this time. That's just how it is. And if you don't like it, rub off one of those edges and try something else or do something else. But I think that was the big aha for me as I've been wrestling with these things. What do? I teach. But I like teach plus. So I'm a triangle. And that's where it all comes from. Anyway, so we're at Starland Yard doing this fundraiser and really spreading the word about the new nonprofit in town. And the kids started by singing Evan Powers' arrangement of, well, it's fine by me if you never leave. It was so much fun. So I get up, I do the welcome everyone for being there. They sounded really good a cappella, super proud of the singers. And then I said this speech. It's the night before the big show. Of course, my outfit is laid out. I've rehearsed every word, every movement, and practiced every posed smile. We are ready. Backstage, the butterflies are gathering, but I know we've put in the practice. I just know. Cue the music, strings. Okay, here you go, Em. Take the first step. And ba-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da. Little town, it's a quiet village every day, like the one before. Little town full of little people waking up to say. Yeah, so 30-something-year-old me remembers every smiling face, the smell of the cafetorium stage, the lights as our 9-year-old team of besties performed, quote, Belle's Town Folk song for the third grade talent show. It was a thrill, y'all. Now, this was not my first time stepping up to lead some unexpected group of people in a jam fest. As any member of the William Sullivan clan can attest, even 5-year-old Emmy was a conducting drill sergeant. Every family gathering had performances, parades, and musical numbers directed by yours truly. No slacking, everyone was part of the show. Sorry, not sorry, Aunt Mags and your boyfriend. So yeah, this is a little glimpse into a couple young experiences that seem to point a direction from childhood passions to chosen career field. But along the way, something happened. I started taking unique jobs and filling learning gaps with really one-of-a-kind experiences, like taking classes in business so I'd understand that side of the musical world, or learning how to do audio design so I could create a podcast. I learned to pause, look inside at my personal strengths, identify my weaknesses, and own the fact that I'm the only me there is. And really, I'm a triangle in a mostly square world, and I'm okay with that. Totally okay. However, reshaping the expected square into a triangle is kind of a process and a smidge bit painful. For me, however, it was music that kept me grounded and allowed me the medium through which to discover and live into my most authentic self. And that experience was what I wanted to figure out how to recreate for my community. I can't possibly be the only non-square in town, although I do love squares, by the way. Music brings people together. It's fun, transformative, explorative, expressive, and entertaining. But it also gives us a place to build something bigger than ourselves, to be a part of a community, to learn skills beyond the singing, to have a safe space to learn a little bit more about who we each are as individuals. I needed to make something where people could come together and emerge a little more authentic every time. I know, let's revolutionize and inspire singing excellence. Cheesy, I know, it's okay. So in 2016, Rise was born, a community choir organization to sing, socialize, and serve. It's in 2021-2022 that we added the Rise Outreach Branch, a 501c3 to support musical programming in our community, offer scholarships for folks exploring life through music, and sponsor more singers to be a part of Rise itself. And that's why we're here today, well, while we were at the fundraiser, to raise awareness and funds for our incredible programming, which you'll hear more about from the other speakers. I'm sorry, those listening to the podcast will not hear more, but I'm happy to tell you more. Next time you see me at a conference or something, stop me, and I can't wait to tell you about the work that's going on in the schools and the senior citizens locations all over town. But the presenter, the podcaster, the teacher in me wants you to walk away from this conversation with not just new information, but something tangible you can apply to your life. Thus, I now present to you 3 lessons everyone, whether you're a rectangle, octagon, circle, or even a square, can take and use from a triangle in a square world. As a triangle, first, you must shine the light. When something lights your fire, share it. Joy is contagious. Energy is transferable. If you have a thing, something that unifies or brings people together, in our case, music, share it. So that's how it started. I knew I wanted to share music because I'm super passionate about it. Second, break the box. When something doesn't feel right, when you're working on a project, when you're figuring something out, when you're writing a paper, doing the homework, whatever, don't be afraid to find the need or problem and brainstorm solutions in and out of the box, meaning what's working, what isn't working, and what are all the possible ways we could ... Shining a light and breaking the box, y'all, are what is single-handedly keeping me thriving during this post-pandemic world. Choir isn't working for us in our community the same that it was before the pandemic. I know that's nothing new for many communities. Families aren't committing to after-school activities as much. Those who are committing are kind of back to that over-committing phase where they're missing rehearsals on the regular. So we're having to pause and still shine the light on what's the thing and breaking the box. How can we reshape it? How can we identify the problem? What's working and not working? And what are all the possible ways we could still shine the light and achieve our goals? The third part is to be the triangle, and this one is my favorite. So a triangle has 3 corners, and it's a great reminder to 1, be flexible, 2, be innovative, and 3, be authentic. What is the worst thing that could happen? You could fail? Great. Failing is forward progress. It's still going somewhere. It's still taking a step. Need examples? There's dozens of them. So many. In fact, if you haven't listened to Dr. Melina Marcella's podcast on all of the things that she's done wonderfully well, she talks straight up about her failures. She says, we wanted to do this. That's shining the light. So we tried to do this. Breaking the box. It didn't work, so we stopped it and we tried this. Going back to shine the light, to break the box, and be the triangle. As long as you're remaining flexible, innovative, and authentic, it'll work. But don't be afraid to be like, oh, that wasn't the best way of going about this, or, oh, it's not really working this way. Let's pivot and try it that way. You're not alone. But if you don't try to triangle, you could be suffocated in a box. So let's end this little talk with 3 applications of the lessons from a triangle. Rise was founded because I felt the need to shine the light. Music had given me so much. It had given me a pathway to college. It had given me scholarships through college and beyond. It had given me a place to feel part of a community. I never struggled with what I was doing with my life because I knew it was music. I knew I was going to be a music teacher. I had a place. I knew what my thing was. And so by shining the light, you can do so by creating something, growing something, redirecting something. When you feel the need to shine the light, when you choose to flexibly, innovatively, and authentically shine the light by creating things or growing things or redirecting what you're doing, you're investing back into the community. But you have to ask the questions and you have to do the work in order to shine the light. 2. Rise continues to adapt and meet the needs of our singers, families, and community by breaking the box. We redesign. We're an LLC. We don't have to run things by a board. Our nonprofit does, which is fantastic to have those checks and balances. But when it comes to actual choral programming, we're able to flip and move based on what's needed. For example, the social fundraiser came about because the family said, we really only want to commit to Monday nights, so we had to find a place that would work on a Monday night. But we want to experience the joy of being in a community like our singers are. So we were able to invite all of our Rise community, outreach, choir, families, friends, into one space to celebrate what it is to be together in community. That happened quickly and effectively and efficiently because we were just redesigning what it looked like. Yeah, we could have had a potluck in the basement of a church. Yeah, we could have had a picnic, but how cool is it to go to one of the hippest places in town? All I had to do was ask, hey, is it possible to get the space? Do we have to? No, we don't have to pay? Cool. Oh, and we can get $1 from every beer and cocktail sold? Fantastic. Oh, you need our, okay. It's asking the question. So you have to start in the beginning by shining the light. Here's why we exist. 2, you have to break the box. Think about something you've never tried before. And if it fails, just don't do it again. Rise doesn't look like other choir models. That's okay. That's the point. We change based on what our community needs because we're investing in our community. Again, you have to ask the questions and do the work and break the box in order to shine the light. Are we going to look like this in 3 to 5 years? I don't know. Are we still going to exist? I sure hope so. I know that we're impacting singers and families every day, so I don't think it's just going to go away. But it might look a little different. But don't we all look a little different in 3 to 5 years? I hope so. Number 3, Rise is living the 3 triangles of flexibility, innovation, and authenticity. We're excited to give and create space for more humans to experience the joy of music together through the creation of Rise Outreach, which is already offering programs, planning workshops, and preparing to give scholarships and sponsorships this season. Yay, triangles! Figuring out ways to be flexible and innovative and authentic. So when you think about it, little town full of little people waking up to say, so embarrassing to sing on this microphone. Together, we can revolutionize and inspire singing excellence. I just choose to do so using choir as my medium. I hope that you have enjoyed learning something about a triangle in a square world. I hope you can shine your light, break the box, and be the triangle you've always meant to be. And I think sharing all that it's vulnerable. I'm sure that there are things I said you might not agree with, or maybe you haven't thought about before. But really, when you think about where it all started and why it all started and what you're doing the right thing. You're showing up. You're listening to a podcast. You're in community right now, you and me. I might not be sitting beside you wherever you are or walking beside you wherever you are, but we believe together in the power of music. So think about it right now. What is something that you want to shine the light on? Then brainstorm what's working, what isn't working, what are all the possible ways you could, ... And don't be afraid to break the box and do something that no one has done before. Here's another point. Do something that someone has done before, and don't be scared because you're not them and they're not you. So even if they've already done it, it'll be completely different in your space with you and your people. Don't be afraid to borrow ideas. Don't be afraid to ask for help. But through it all, as you're shining the light and breaking the box, be the triangle. Be flexible, be innovative, and be authentically you. Because you, my friend, are the only you there is. I hope you've enjoyed this very special birthday episode of the Music Ed Matters podcast. I am eternally thankful for you. And in case no one has told you today, you, my friend, matter. We all know that music matters, especially creating whatever needs to be created to impact the world with the power of music. And I'll see you next time on the